Welcome, my dear students, to this English class with me, your tutor Atsinyo Sekose. And today we are going to continue with the topic that is The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. Today what we are going to do is we are going to find out more about the character traits of the characters in the novel. So what we have here, the most interesting characters is that which is actually in sync with the theme of contrast and modernism and materialism. All those things you will find it in the Otis family. Now the Otis family are rich American people, again modern people, who gives a picture perfect of the American dream family. Remember, if you look at it, you would find that the parents are very rich, they are very beautiful, they hold great social status. Take the example of Mr. Otis. When Virginia said that she can asked her father, Mr. Otis, to give a safe passage to the ghost so that he can travel to America. See, that kind of money, power and influence that the American family has is being reflected here. So you would find that even in chapter 2, in the supper conversation, you know, they dismissed the existence of the ghost entirely. With the first appearance of the ghost, the next day they went out and then they came back very late and they were talking about things as a normal family. They were not talking about the ghost here. They were talking about, remember, they were talking about important people, celebrities. They were talking about how corn is not, the best kind of quality of corn is not available in Britain. They were also talking about the lady, Mrs. Otis was also talking about the world soul, the latest development, you know. They were more interested in this kind of latest research in the society, current affairs, rather than talk about an old thing, a 300 years old bloodstain or a superstitious thing that is to do with the existence of a ghost. So in that way, you will find that this modern family is a quick and active family who are active with the current scenarios, and yet you will also find that they are willing to change. Take the example of Mr. Otis, who later on, when the bloodstain reappeared, decided that it is equally the house of the ghost and that they should not ill-treat him. So that's why he scolded the two twins for throwing pillows at the ghost. And take the example of Mrs. Otis, who is also trying to learn about the physical world, which means about the supernatural world later on, in order to understand the ghost. So they are susceptible to changes. They are willing, in fact, to change for a good cause. So that is what you will find here in this Otis family, a perfect modern American, perfect American dream family that we have, versus the Britain that is the aristocratic or the dogmatic, the traditionalist views of people. However, in the story, in the characterization, you cannot entirely say that the Otis family represents this and the ghost represents entirely the aristocratic family and so on. But you would find that there is a great combination of elements within the character makeup of the characters. Take the example of Virginia, who represents both worlds, or the modern and the Victorian, or the old and the scientific, and so on. So that's what we have here. So that gives us a brief summary of the Otis family as a modern family. Now we are going to take a look at specific characters here. Take the example of Mr. Hiram B. Otis, who is the head of the family, who is the American, a perfect, again, American Republic, who is a little bit conservative in his views and opinions, who is strict, but who also holds a lot of paternal love, shows a lot of warmth in the story to his families. And you will also find that he is very American in nature. Take the example of when he was being very Californian in when he threatened the ghost with hands up, you know, that kind of in a very Californian style he did that. So he's very Americanized, we can say. Then he is also very materialistic. Take the example of the ghost at evaluation. He said that I will buy the ghost at evaluation. He thinks that money can buy everything, titles and even a ghost. So that is the extent of materialism that we find in the character of Mr. Hiram B. Otis. Now, he is also very practical in nature, we can say, but he also gives very materialistic solutions. Take the example of offering the Tammany Rising Sun lubricator to the ghost. That itself is giving a very materialistic approach to solving the problem of the chains being rattling. Now you will also find, interestingly, you will also find that the extent of materialism also goes to his impression to maintain his social decorum. You know, we will find that in the story, the family is in great drama looking for Virginia, and he is also trying to arrange things to figure out where she went. In the middle of it, the lover, that is the Duke of Cheshire, he came, and so in the middle of such a family drama looking for Virginia, what did Mr. Otis suggest to the Duke of Cheshire? I must get you a hat. See, very materialistic. He is very concerned about the impression that he is going to give, maintaining his social status and decorum, because a gentleman is supposed to wear a hat every time he goes out. That was the fashion of the day. So maintaining his social status and decorum. So that's what you would find here. However, you will also find that he is one of the character who undergoes, we can also say, a major change besides Virginia, because you would find that after the bloodstain reappeared, he decided, he also has compassion to a certain degree. He decided that it is not right to terrorize or to chase away the ghost, since it was his house too, and since he was living there for more than 300 years. So see that kind of understanding that he showed towards the ghost. That's what you will also find in the character of Mr. Otis. Now let's take a look at Mrs. Otis. I have also mentioned in the previous lesson that Mrs. Otis is also quite materialistic. By take the example of offering a medicine in order to cure the stomach ailments of the ghost. We find that she is a very beautiful lady when she was young, but also still very beautiful in her present age. She leads a very active and social life. How can we say that? She participates in the family conversation, talking about current affairs. She knows what is going on in the outside world. She is also interested to find out more about the ghost, and that's why she went and studied the physical world, about the supernatural beings and so on. So she is always curious to learn. That's what you will find in the character makeup of Mrs. Otis. But you will find that she is also very materialistic. The ghost, quote unquote, the ghost said that grossly materialistic, that Mrs. Otis is grossly materialistic, and that's why he wanted to terrorize Mrs. Otis more. So that is what we have here in the character makeup of Mrs. Otis. Now let's come to Washington Otis. He is the eldest son and a very dashing one, very handsome fellow. He also participated a lot in terrorizing the ghost, or Sir Simon here, and you will find that Washington Otis is very skilled in so many things. Again, remember the perfect example of the American Dream family member here. Very skilled in dancing, very skilled in playing cards and so on. So who also lives a very social, active life. He is very materialistic and very scientific in his temperament. Why? Because take the example of when they first discovered that 300 years old bloodstain near the fireplace. He said that they learned that it cannot be removed and that it attracts lots of tourists to that place too, or spot too. However, what did he say? That is nonsense. That's what he said. He does not believe in it, and in fact he is the one who brought out the Pinkerton stain remover, and when he removed it, he was so proud of that invention, of that stick that is able to remove that 300 years old blood stain. So that is again what we have here. They are all very practical and solve their problems in a very practical manner, but in a materialistic manner. The twins are nameless in this novel, but they were known as Stars and Stripes. Why? Because they were being disciplined. Remember, the father is quite strict, and they were being disciplined by the father because they usually get into a lot of mischievous adventure, and that's why when they get admonished, they probably get hurt as well. So Stars and Stripes are their pet names, we can say. Now, the ghost feared these two twins twins the most. Why? Because they are quick, boisterous, and the ghost went to the extent of really hating them because of creating a lot of mischiefs and a lot of mishaps to the ghost. Remember the famous butter slide where the ghost had to fall down and humiliate himself. The ghost humiliated himself when his plan was foiled. Instead of scaring them, frightening them, he was being poured on with a jug of water, and all these kind of mischievous things that they did. In fact, even going to the extent of creating a dummy ghost which fooled the ghost and humiliated him again further. So all these kind of incidences make the ghost hate these two twins, and he is really vengeful towards them. He really wanted to scare them, but he failed to succeed here. So that's what we find here. Take the example of when he has a great motive in order to harm the Duke of Cheshire, but he was afraid to do so because the room that the Duke of Cheshire was sleeping was next to the twins, and he consoled himself that perhaps he would not be taking vengeance on the Stilton or the Duke of Cheshire here. So that is what we find here. These twins terrorize the ghost to a breakdown, but in fact to a breakdown where he is able to find himself. You know, he went into a great depression, and as the story unfolds, that's when the interactions between Virginia took place. So the twins also played a major role in bringing down the downfall of the ghost. Now, Virginia Otis we can consider it as the heroine in the novel. Why so? Because she is the one who was transformed the most. She was the one who learned and changes the most. You would find that she is a very beautiful, blue-eyed, fair-skinned lady who has an ardent admirer in the Duke of Cheshire, and you would find that she is fairly skilled as a horsewoman. She is very good in horse riding. That's what we learned here. Then you will find that she is quiet and compassionate. Why quiet? Because take the example when the whole family was laughing at the bloodstain, when it is turning green and purple sometimes, the whole family was laughing, and yet she was quiet because she understood that the ghost is running out of pains, because the ghost, remember, is stealing from Miss Virginia's pains. So you would find that she understood the ghost, and in some cases she would go and scold or tell the twins that not to terrorize the ghost so much so. So that's what we have here. And you will also find that the ghost is really confused as to do what the ghost is really confused as to what to do with Miss Virginia, because she has never harmed the ghost. Remember, the ghost had schemed, I am going to terrorize Mr. Otis in this way, I am going to terrorize, he plotted in that way about almost all the family members. But when it comes to Virginia, he does not know what to do. But he contented himself by saying, perhaps maybe I would just give a slight whisper so that she would be frightened. You know, he could not really make up his mind. When it comes to the other family members, he wants to go headless, he wants to turn into a skeleton, he wants to turn greenish, fluorescent greenish, and so on. So all these kind of things he planned, and but when it comes to Virginia, he is not very sure. Why? Because he is also able to see that Virginia has good qualities, that also tells us that the ghost is has the ability to see the good things in people. Now, Virginia is also very helpful and courageous. We can say she is very helpful and courageous. She dared to go on an adventure with the ghost in order to help the ghost find redemption, you know. But remember, she was being warned by a lot of things, ghoulish things such as the lizards and so on, but she was brave. She listened to the instruction of the ghost, and she gave a listening ear to the ghost, and that's how she was the one who brought out the redemption, or that was how she was able to help the ghost to find peace later on in the story. So she can be termed as the heroine in our story. She is also the character who transformed the most, and she is the element which binds, remember, the conflicting, the contrast. She is the one who binds all those things together through her marriage with the Duke of Cheshire. And she also represents a little bit of Victorian morality. Remember that it is not right to kill a person, and yet she also pointed out that the ghost should travel a little bit to America in order to learn more. So see, she is a combination of all these elements, and that's how she brought about a perfect blend in the novel here. And we also learned that her birthplace, she also has a little bit of aristocracy in her blood, because later on we find that she was born, her birthplace was actually in London, even though the family were American. So that's what we have here. All the plots and the strings were pulled together through and bind it through the character that is Virginia. Now, the most interesting character in our novel here is the ghost. The whole story gets unfolded from the perspective of the ghost. We get to understand the vengefulness, the anger that the ghost has towards people, towards frightening the people. We understand how it really humiliated him when he did not succeed. All these kind of things were being brought about through the perspective of the ghost here. He is also one of the hero or the protagonist, we can say. Why? Because he also later on was able to find peace. Now, if we look into his life, even though he had murdered his wife, we find that there was a lot of misunderstanding, we can say, because he was dissatisfied with the marriage. He was dissatisfied because the wife was not able to cook, the wife was not able to provide him with the right kind of clothes for the right occasion, and so on. So though out in a fit of anger, you remember when he went hunting for a deer and he brought it, the wife did not know how to prepare it. So in a fit of anger, he murdered the wife, no doubt, and that's why his soul was not able to find peace and roaming and terrorizing people in that manner. But later on, he found redemption through that prophecy that was being fulfilled by Virginia. And in fact, he also learned a lot of things from Virginia. His guilty spirits haunt the chase, but he was eventually able to be redeemed, or he found redemption. Initially, he was very vengeful and he wanted to terrorize people. You can also say that there is a great sense of justice in the ghost here. Remember, when he terrorized, when he was reliving his past about his great career as a ghost, terrorizing people, he terrorized those people so that they would also come to the right path. Remember, Madame de Tromelec, reconciliation with the church. You know, he terrorized this madam so that later on she was too scared and she became reconciled to the church. And the previous Lord Canterville confessed that he cheated at a game of cards using the knave of diamonds. So the way he terrorized, the kind of victims that he chooses are those people who had committed certain crimes, and this also shows that the ghost has a great sense of justice within him. Now, he is also a very prejudiced person, having preconceived ideas about things without actually knowing it, without actually knowing that America is such a great nation, without actually figuring and experiencing it himself. He said that he does not like the Navy people, he does not like the Otis family, they are vulgar, that they are very rude people, and so on. So it is quite interesting that Virginia pointed out that he should travel more in order to see the changes that is happening in the world. So that's what we have here. I have already pointed out that he also has the ability to see virtue in Virginia. So that is what we have here. The ghost character is also a very interesting character because through the reverse of roles, like I said, he has brought out a lot of comedy in the novel. You would find that he is very proud of his heritage, choosing the armor, for instance, choosing the costume, the armor. He was very proud of that heritage, and he's also very theatrical And he's also very theatrical, and in his choice of clothes, he's very fancy. Remember, for every different kinds of occasion, for different kinds of person, he would either go with skeleton suicide or headless Rupert and so on. So those are the way that also shows that he's very scheming in nature. The way he planned is very meticulous, you know, very meticulous, but usually foiled by the twins or the Otis family here. And you would also find that the ghost is through the ghost, the author, in fact, Oscar Wilde, has brought about a lot of themes that is about forgiveness, about peace, about death. And in fact, Virginia said that I have learned so many things from, I owe a great deal to the ghost. So that's what you will find here. So he is also one of the characters who brought out all those elements in the novel. Now, another character is Mrs. Umney, who is an elderly woman, about 50 years of age, and very traditional and dogmatic. You know, she was the one who fainted when the bloodstain was removed, because she really believed in that superstitious story or the myth of the ghost here. And yet you would find that, interestingly, she was dismissed as a person who was simply trying to be very superficial with all this kind of beliefs. And remember, Mr. Otis even said that she should be threatened to be fired, instead of understanding that her belief is rooted to superstitions. They thought that she is simply being, in a very practical way, they were simply thinking that she fainted because of old age and that she cannot perform her work well. So all those kind of accounts can be taken into. Through Mrs. Umney, we are able to understand the history of the ghost, that is Sir Simon Canterville. We learned that through her that he murdered his wife, and that we learned that he survived the wife for 9 years but disappeared in a very mysterious manner. Of course, later on we find that what exactly happened to the ghost and why he was not able to find peace. And I hope you would take some time to read it. So that's what we have here. These are not only the characters here, but some of the important characters in the novel. And I hope you are able to put 2 and 2 together and also draw a little bit of conclusion as to how this story unfolds. There are plenty which I haven't discussed with you, so I hope that you would, like I said, take time to read it and enjoy it, because this is a novel, a very interesting novel with different kinds of elements of ghost, elements of romance, elements of family drama, and elements of philosophical things, all rolled into one. So I hope you would read it and enjoy it. Thank you all very much for joining me.